The endless applause for her made it obvious there was no encore left for me. I was the quiet one, the practical one, the one they called sweet at gatherings when they ran out of compliments. Did you hear Lisa closed a $10 million merger? Aunt Sandra would gush. Then the pity pivot, always the same head tilt toward me. And Jessica, you're still doing that property thing, right? Yes, I was still doing that property thing. And I loved it. I loved analyzing neighborhoods, measuring potential like puzzle pieces, walking through half-ruined buildings and knowing their worth before anyone else did. But love didn't translate to prestige at our dinner table. Lisa's success was the headline. Mine was the cautionary footnote. For 5 years, I rented a 2-bedroom apartment in one of Grandma's older buildings on Riverside Drive. Lisa managed it for the family pro bono, or so she reminded us every chance she got. My rent was $2,200, market rate $2,400. Her generosity was exactly $200 worth of bragging rights. Most people in your income bracket couldn't live in this neighborhood, she'd say, tossing that smug smile like loose change in a tip jar. And I believed her for a long time. I paid rent on time every month. Even when the heat died in January, even when she took 3 months to replace a dishwasher that flooded my kitchen. I never complained. In her script, I was the grateful understudy who never got promoted. But 3 years before that Tuesday night, Grandma changed everything. Every Sunday afternoon before she passed, I sat at her kitchen table organizing her finances. She was 87, still sharp as glass, but she trusted me to make sense of the dense reports the bank kept mailing her. The two of us surrounded by stacks of manila folders, that's one of my happiest memories. One evening, the sky turning violet behind her lace curtains, she handed me a small white card, corners worn from years in her purse. Your sister means well, she said softly, but she doesn't see everything. Sometimes the quiet ones are the smartest, Jessica. Remember that when the time comes. I had no clue what she meant. Not then. A few months later after her funeral I found out. Her personal lawyer, the one Lisa didn't even know existed, called me privately. Grandma had left me a separate inheritance, off the books from the rest of the family estate. Nothing flashy, but enough to seed an investment. Enough to rewrite the hierarchy. The next 2 years were my transformation arc. While Lisa kept lecturing me about being responsible and more independent, I was studying market law at midnight, reviewing contracts, setting up accounts under a crisp new company name, Riverside Holdings LLC. I stopped waiting for approval. I started building leverage to BY then. I'd learned through public records that Grandma's old building, the one I lived in, was drowning under debt. The owner, separate from Grandma's estate now, was desperate to sell. He needed to offload it quietly before foreclosure. So I made him an offer. A precise, fully legal offer backed by my inheritance, my savings, and a business loan. I qualified. He accepted. And just like that, through Riverside Holdings LLC, I became the actual owner and landlord of the building my sister thought she controlled. Lisa never noticed. She was too busy shining in her own spotlight to check the property registry. She still flounced into family gatherings, bragging about managing Grandma's portfolio, collecting a tidy fee for work I'd already automated. For 3 years, she collected imaginary credit, while I quietly collected actual rent payments. The irony fed me more than any victory ever could. Then came the night. Grandma's living room. 13 relatives, dinner plates cleared, wine glasses refilled. Lisa standing by the window like a judge about to announce sentencing. Your current rent is $2,200, which is far below market. Comparable units on Riverside Drive list between $6,500 and $7,000. I've been subsidizing your lifestyle for 5 years. That's over $200,000 out of my own pocket. She said it with pride, as if saintliness came with itemized receipts. Aunt Ashley gasped like Lisa had survived a shipwreck. Lisa, you're such a saint. Lisa raised her slender hand. Please, no praise. I just want fairness. Jessica needs to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. So effective next month, your rent is $6,800. The silence was so deep you could hear a fork hit carpet. All eyes turned to me, the failure, the dependent one. I caught me parents' gaze, hoping for support, but they only looked away, embarrassed. Lisa slid a lease across the coffee table like a jury verdict. Signed today. I glanced at the papers, then at my phone. My earlier message blinked. On my way, documents ready. The reply waited 15 minutes out. Lisa mistook my calm for defeat. To help the family understand, she said, tapping her tablet. Here are comparable listings in nearby buildings. $7,200, $7,200, $7,500, even $8,000. I'm giving her a discount at $6,800. My phone buzzed again. 10 minutes out. Uncle Daniel cleared his throat. Lisa, that's a steep jump from $2,200. Lisa's smile tightened. It's market rate. Successful people pay market rate. And Jessica works in property management. No one should understand this better than her. A wave of laughter circled the room. Cousin Mark grinned. Guess you'll need a few roommates, Jess. I could feel their amusement crackling like static. The forgotten sister finally humbled. Lisa leaned in, voice syrupy sweet. Sign the lease or start packing. I've already got 3 Columbia law students willing to pay $7,000. Her threat hung like cheap perfume. And yet I almost pitied her. She had no idea she just served herself an eviction notice, because the building she thought she owned, managed, and dominated. Every square foot, every brick, every window frame, every rent record was mine. And tonight, in front of our entire family, I was about to prove it. The doorbell rang. Perfect timing. Lisa sighed impatiently. Who on earth comes by unannounced on a Tuesday? I stood, smoothing my sleeves, pulse perfectly steady. 15 pairs of eyes followed me to the door. When I opened it, a tall man in a crisp charcoal suit stepped forward, carrying a leather briefcase. Good evening, he said evenly. I turned to the room. Everyone, this is Mr. Carver. Lisa's eyebrow arched. Your lawyer, she scoffed. Actually, I said smoothly. He represents Riverside Holdings LLC. Mr. Carver set his briefcase on the nearest table, unlatched it, and began handing out identical, neatly stapled packets. His voice was calm but commanding, the kind that makes everyone straighten instinctively. Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the ownership entity of this property, Riverside Holdings. He paused just long enough for the name to sink in. We have updated documents concerning the tenant leases for this building. A ripple of confusion spread across every face. Lisa's practiced confidence faltered. Her lawyer act vanished in a blink. She frowned, straightened her already perfect suit jacket, and asked the question everyone else was about to voice. Wait, she said. Tenants? Tenants? What is this? I manage this property. Mr. Carver adjusted his glasses with practiced precision. Not anymore, Miss Lisa. Riverside Holdings purchased this building 3 years ago. I'm here tonight on behalf of the owner to address some irregularities in the management. Lisa's face began to drain of color. That's impossible. I would have known about any sale. I would have been notified. I stepped forward, my voice steady but loud enough for every relative to hear. You weren't notified because you were never the owner, Lisa. You were just the manager. And you didn't know because you never bothered to check public records. You were too busy lecturing me about standing on my own feet to notice that I'd been building my foundation right under your nose. Whispers erupted like small explosions. Cousin Mark muttered. Wait, what the hell is happening? My mother Emily's eyes went wide with shock. My father Stephen's mouth actually fell open. Lisa turned to fury, breaking through her shock like lightning. You're lying. This is some kind of sick joke. Mr. Carver opened his briefcase and placed a thick stack of documents on Grandma's old coffee table with a sound that echoed through the suddenly silent room. Title deeds, tax receipts, renovation permits, property insurance policies. His voice was clear, professional, and devastating. All signed by the same person. Jessica Irving is the sole owner of this building and has been for 3 years. The room went absolutely silent. Even Grandma's old clock seemed to pause mid-tick. Lisa stumbled backward like she'd been physically struck. No, this can't be happening. This isn't real. I looked her straight in the eye, and for the first time in my adult life I didn't look away first. You just tried to triple my rent on a building that doesn't even belong to you. You tried to evict me from my own property, Lisa. And you did it in front of everyone, thinking you'd finally put me in my place once and for all. The silence shattered with a dozen overlapping reactions. Aunt Ashley whispered, Oh my God! My father cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. My mother's wine glass trembled in her hand. Lisa shook her head violently, her perfect composure crumbling like a house of cards. This isn't fair. You tricked me. You know, Lisa. My voice was firmer now, stronger than it had ever been in this room. I didn't trick you. I just stopped letting you trick me. I stopped accepting your version of who I was supposed to be. She opened her mouth again, but no sound came out. The power she had wielded so casually, so cruelly, had slipped from her fingers in an instant. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the overlooked sister. I wasn't the underachiever, the charity case, the one who needed her handouts. I was the one holding the deed. But I wasn't finished. Mr. Carver, I said, my voice carrying a new authority that surprised even me. Could you please explain to my sister her current residential status? The lawyer consulted his documents with professional detachment. Certainly. Miss Lisa Irving currently occupies Unit 4 under a month-to-month arrangement. As a tenant of Riverside Holdings, she's subject to the same rental agreements as any other resident. The gasp that erupted from the room was sharp, almost theatrical. Lisa staggered backward as though struck by lightning. My unit? She whispered, horrified that I folded my arms. Years of humiliation sharpened my words into surgical steel. Yes, Lisa. You raised my rent in a building where you're just another tenant. Do you understand now? While you were busy performing superiority for everyone in this room, you were actually performing for your landlord. Aunt Betty whispered something that sounded like a prayer. Uncle Andrew muttered about karma under his breath. My cousin Mark, for once in his smug life, kept his mouth completely shut. Lisa's composure didn't just crack. It shattered entirely. This is impossible. I won't pay you a cent. I'll sue. You'll pay or you'll leave. I cut her off. My voice steady as granite. The same choice you so generously offered me 5 minutes ago. The market rate for your unit is actually $7,500. I've been giving you a family discount at $5,500, but since you seem to believe family discounts are bad business, I let the implication hang in the air. She looked around the room desperately, searching for support that would never come. My parents sat frozen, finally unable to shield their golden child from consequences. My relatives suddenly found their shoes fascinating. For the first time in 32 years, they couldn't rally to her defense. Because she wasn't the victim anymore, I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear, though I knew every person in that room was straining to listen. You thought you could crush me in front of everyone. You thought you could humiliate me one final time. But here's the truth, Lisa. While you were busy trying to climb above me, I was already standing higher than you ever knew. Her lips trembled like a child's. You're being cruel to know, I whispered back, feeling a lifetime of suppressed strength flowing through my voice. I'm finally done being your victim. Mr. Carver closed his briefcase with a snap that sounded like a gavel striking wood. That concludes my business for this evening. Miss Irving, you have my number if you need anything else. He shook my hand with genuine respect, nodded to the stunned audience, and walked out. The silence that followed was deafening in its completeness. Lisa collapsed back into her chair, her once perfect posture shattered, her eyes glassy with shock and perhaps the first real humility of her adult life. I turned toward the door, feeling the weight of 15 years of belittlement finally sliding off my shoulders like an old coat I no longer needed. I didn't need their applause. I didn't need their approval or validation. The look on my sister's pale face, the absolute silence of those who had once laughed at my expense, that was enough. That was everything. As I stepped into the cool night air, I realized something profound. Revenge hadn't been my plan when I bought that building. Survival had been independence, self-respect. But sometimes survival becomes its own form of perfect justice. The weeks that followed were a symphony of consequences I'd never dared to dream of. Lisa avoided me at first, retreating into a silence that felt like victory every single day. But then the calls started, pleading ones at odd hours, her voice trembling in ways once unthinkable. Jessica, can we work something out? She begged one night, her golden confidence cracked like a broken mirror. You can't really expect me to pay rent to you. I'm your sister. I almost laughed. The same sister who'd weaponized that word for years, wielding it like a club to remind me I was lesser, weaker, more dependent. Now she said it like a shield, fragile and thin. You raised my rent to $6,800 without blinking, I reminded her calmly. Why should I treat you any differently than you treated me? Her silence on the line was enough. Then came my parents. My mother called, her voice brittle with barely contained fury. "You've humiliated your sister, Jessica. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family's reputation?" I let her words hang in the air for a long moment before answering. "Do you know what you did to me, Mom? All those years you stood by while Lisa belittled me, while she treated me like a burden instead of blood. You didn't care about reputation then. You cared about keeping peace with your golden child. Now the truth is simply the truth." She hung up on me, but I didn't cry. I didn't crumble the way I would have years ago. Instead, I leaned into the rhythm of my new life. I managed my tenants with care and respect. I reinvested profits into building improvements, painting the halls in warm colors that reminded me of Grandma's gentle touch. When neighbors stopped me to thank me for fixing things Lisa had neglected for years, pride swelled in my chest like sunlight. One evening, as I was locking up the lobby after meeting with a contractor about new security cameras, I saw Lisa standing on the sidewalk. Her arms were crossed, her face pale under the streetlight, and she looked smaller somehow, diminished in a way that had nothing to do with physical size. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like she was searching for the sister who used to shrink when she raised her voice. Finally, she whispered, "You've changed, Jessica." I met her gaze without flinching, without the old familiar urge to look away first. "No, Lisa. I've just stopped letting you control the story." She blinked as though the words cut deeper than any anger ever could. She opened her mouth to argue, to fight, to reassert some shadow of her old dominance, but nothing came out. She turned and walked away, her expensive heels clicking against the pavement, the sound fading into the night like the echo of everything she used to be to me. I stood there for a long moment, breathing in the quiet. For the first time in years I felt truly free. Not just from her, but from the crushing weight of needing her approval, her validation, her permission to exist as an equal. My life was mine now. Built brick by brick, deed by deed, choice by choice. And that freedom was worth more than any revenge could ever be. It was justice served by my own hands, and it tasted like victory. If this story touched something deep in your heart, I hope you take this truth with you. You're not defined by the voices that try to diminish you. You are not bound to the roles others force you into. Sometimes the greatest power you'll ever claim is the courage to own your story and stand tall in it. No matter who tries to cut you down. If you felt the fire of justice in Jessica's journey, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories of quiet strength overcoming loud arrogance. Drop your own story of standing up for yourself in the comments. I read every single one.